Oh, you thought things between Rashida and Jasmine had already hit rock bottom? Think again. Because what just went down in that courtroom has the entire love and hip-hop world spiraling into chaos. Rashida walked into her divorce hearing ready to face Kirk, but she wasn't ready for Jasmine. Not only did Jasmine show up uninvited, she came locked and loaded with a bombshell that nobody saw coming. We're talking about documents, receipts, and an allegation so wild even the judge had to pause the hearing. Cameras caught Rashida's face as her confidence melted into shock, then tears. And when Kirk leaned forward to whisper something to Jasmine mid-hearing, oh baby, that's when the whispers in the courtroom turned into a full-blown storm. From shady side-eyes to secret text messages being read aloud, this drama is far from over. And trust me, you're not ready for what Jasmine exposed next. Cameras were already waiting outside the courthouse when the black SUV rolled to a stop and Rashida stepped out like she'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. But today, her chin didn't sit as high. You could see it in the way her hand lingered on the doorframe, in the way the paparazzi flashes made her blink twice before she found her light. The courthouse steps felt longer than usual. Security held the crowd. Bloggers shouted questions. And somewhere a fan was already on live screaming, "Y'all, it's really happening." Inside, the air conditioner blasted the kind of cold that makes your nerves feel louder. The clerk stamped papers. A mic check echoed from a local news crew. And then, like a needle scratching across a record, Kirk slid in a side entrance with a stylist's touch-up still on his collar and not a single expression on his face. No smile, number, frown. Just that unreadable calm that makes people stop guessing and start whispering. Rashida didn't look at him at first. She greeted her lawyer, smoothed her blazer, and took her seat. Her phone buzzed. Twice Miss Shirlene had texted a prayer hand emoji, and then, "Don't let him see you sweat." Rashida typed back a quick heart and locked the screen. She inhaled. Slow. Today wasn't supposed to be easy, just necessary. Then the courtroom doors opened again and the room snapped to attention. A wave of breath like everyone remembered at the same time. This wasn't just a divorce hearing. This was Atlanta. Jasmine walked in. No entourage, no sunglasses. No dramatic coat to fling over the bench, just a tight ponytail, a simple dress, an envelope clutched like it held her whole future. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Kirk's eyes finally moved. Rashida's lawyer muttered, "Well, that's unexpected." And Rashida, who had promised herself she would not give anyone the satisfaction of a visible reaction, blinked once, then twice, then went still, like a statue that had learned how to breathe. The judge entered before the murmurs could become a storm. All rise, wood creaked, shoes scuffed. Everyone sat. Formalities rolled like credits case number. Parties present. Then, with practiced calm, the judge said, "We'll hear preliminary statements." Rashida's lawyer stood, polished and precise, painting a picture of dignity, assets, timelines. Nothing messy, nothing that couldn't be filed neatly in a cabinet. Rashida kept her gaze steady on the seal above the judge's head and pretended she didn't feel Kirk's presence like a low baseline in her chest. Kirk's attorney responded with something measured. Something safe until a polite cough from the gallery cut through. All heads turned. Jasmine stood. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady but threaded with adrenaline. "I have something that needs to be entered into the record." The courtroom inhaled like a choir. The judge lifted a brow. "Ma'am, identify yourself." "Jasmine. Washington," she said, and you could feel the phones come up. Red dots of recordings silently blinking like watchful eyes. Rashida didn't mean to look. She told herself she wouldn't, but curiosity is a traitor. Their eyes met, and it was like 1,000 episodes worth of past decisions condensed into a single electric second. Jasmine held up the envelope. "This relates to financial statements, communications, and an agreement that impacted this marriage. It's dated, signed, and notarized." Kirk exhaled through his nose. A barely there tell. His lawyer shifted in his seat. Rashida's lawyer whispered, "We can object to relevance," but the judge was already nodding to the bailiff. Envelope left Jasmine's hand like a baton passing in a relay no one had trained for. As the judge scanned the first page, the room fell into that hush that only happens when gossip turns into evidence. A page turned, then another. The judge looked over glasses toward the defense table. "Mr. Frost, did you or did you not enter into this agreement on the date indicated?" Kirk didn't flinch. "I'd like to see the document," his attorney said, standing with a smoothness that tried to mop up the mess before it spread. Copies were distributed like invitations to a party everyone secretly wanted to attend. Rashida's heart pounded so loud she thought someone else would hear it. She focused on the exact center of the judge's robe and counted her breaths like beats in a metronome. But a memory threaded its way in anyway. And Kirk backstage once. Lights hot, crowd louder, promises made in a whisper that felt like a contract. How did promises become paperwork? When did a vow become an exhibit? Lawyer leaned in, voice low. "There's a payment schedule in here, a clause about non-disclosure, and references to communications that predate your last reconciliation." The word reconciliation hit like a glass slipping from wet fingers. Rashida closed her eyes for half a breath. She felt the room tilt, just a degree, but enough to make balance feel like work, in the second row. A blogger's fingers flew across the screen. Alleged side agreement exposed in courtroom. "This is wild." A hush laugh from someone else. "Girl, I told you something would drop." The judge tapped the document with a pen. "This appears to reflect ongoing commitments." And an acknowledgement of certain. The judge paused, choosing a word the way a surgeon chooses a tool. "Circumstances." The gavel didn't strike, but the sentence landed like one. Kirk's lawyer tried to frame it as old business, handled as not directly relevant to the division of assets. But Jasmine, still standing, cleared her throat again. "There's more," she said, and her voice wavered for the first time. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small USB drive. The messages. A ripple moved through the benches like wind through high grass. The judge sighed the sigh of someone who'd seen everything and still couldn't quite believe today. "Approach," the judge said. And the lawyers converged like weather systems colliding. Rashida's hands, perfectly manicured and perfectly still, tightened just enough for her ring to bite. She remembered the begging Ms. from fans to leave. Him sis, the bravado of her IG captions. The soft ache of hope that maybe this time would be the last time they had to survive a storm. And right then, as the technical staff moved a monitor into place, she realized she had two choices: be stone or be human. The first screenshot bloomed on the screen like an unwelcome sunrise. "Meet me at the studio. We'll talk there. Keep it off text." Her stomach dropped. It wasn't proof of anything by itself. People talk. People vent, but the timestamps crawled across the screen like ants on sugar, detailing a pattern she'd argued with and forgiven and pressed flat. Beneath new routines. Then came another message. A calendar notification. A wire confirmation referencing a consultation that looked less like business and more like silence being bought wholesale. Her throat tightened. The air conditioner didn't feel cold anymore. It felt thin. Kirk whispered to his attorney. The attorney whispered back. They were a whispering machine, efficient and closed loop. Rashida stared at the screen as if she could will it to show a different name, a different date, a typo, anything. Her lawyer squeezed her elbow, a human anchor in a legal ocean. "We can contextualize," he murmured. "Breathe." But the room had begun to sway with the kind of shared disbelief that bursts new narratives in real time. A juror in a trial would have been dismissed for that face, but this wasn't a jury. This was something crueler, public opinion on a lunch break. The judge asked for order, voice firm. "We will not turn this courtroom into a spectacle." The words held, but the energy didn't drain. It just sat heavy. like thunder deciding what to do next. Jasmine swallowed, then lifted her chin. "I didn't come here to humiliate anyone," she said, and for a flash you could see that this wasn't easy for her either. "I came because I was told to stay quiet and I can't carry it anymore." The agreement was never about me winning. It was about me disappearing. The sentence shook something loose in the room. Even Kirk's mask slipped for a blink. And you could see the room had seen it, and the room would tell the world. The door to the hallway cracked open, letting in the sound of reporters resetting, of camera batteries clicking into place, of 1,000 thumbnails being imagined. Rashida inhaled and tried to square her shoulders, but the weight wouldn't sit right. She turned toward the bench to steady herself, and that's when Jasmine said softly, almost too softly to catch, "There's one more thing the court needs to hear. And it's not in those messages." Every conversation stopped mid-word. Even the old clock in the corner seemed to delay its next tick, waiting. Rashida froze mid-step, somewhere between composure and collapse. The judge looked up over the rim of the glasses, measuring the moment. Jasmine opened her purse again, fingers trembling just a little. And the entire room leaned forward like a single body, bracing for an impact none of them could predict. Ask ChatGPT, the purse felt heavier than it should for something so small. Jasmine's hand lingered inside as if she was weighing the cost of what she was about to do. Her eyes darted once toward Kirk, whose face was still stone, then to Rashida, whose chin lifted just enough to signal she was bracing for impact. The judge gave a tight nod. "Proceed, Ms. Washington." Jasmine pulled out a phone. Not her current one, but an older model, scuffed edges, cracked screen, and that telltale thickness of a device that had lived through more than one bad decision. She held it like it was Exhibit A in the trial of the century. She said, "Is the phone I was told to destroy 3 years ago." The collective gasp was almost theatrical. Reporters instinctively leaned forward, phones hovering like vultures over fresh prey. The judge signaled to the bailiff, "Bring it here." Jasmine's grip tightened before she let go. "Everything is still in it," she added. Messages, voicemails, pictures, and not just mind screenshots from his phone. A murmur rose from the gallery, but Rashida's ears caught on the phrase, "his phone," like a nail in silk. Her mind spun whose? Kirk's? Someone else's? She glanced at her lawyer, whose brow furrowed in that subtle way that says, "We're in uncharted territory." The bailiff placed the phone on the clerk's desk. Technicians moved in with gloves and cables, setting up a projector for the entire courtroom to see. The tension was a living thing now, curling through the benches, pulling at every breath. Kirk shifted in his seat, finally looking at Jasmine, with something between annoyance and calculation. The first file opened a string of text messages between Kirk and Jasmine, dated months before Rashida ever suspected anything. "Studio at 10. Don't tell Rash. Another trip to Miami under your name." And then a photo. Grainy, taken in a hotel room. Kirk, shirtless, leaning over a table with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. His face was partially turned, but the jawline was unmistakable. Rashida's stomach nodded, but she stayed still. This wasn't the first time she'd seen something like this. But the timestamps were like little knives lined up in a row. They coincided perfectly with the weekend Kirk had told her he was in New York for meetings. Kirk's attorney jumped in. "Your Honor, these are old, irrelevant, and prejudicial to the proceedings." But the judge cut him off. "They may establish context for financial decisions within the marriage." Overruled. Then came the voicemails. The first was just background noise and Kirk's voice saying, "Yeah, I'll wire it after the show. Don't trip." The second, "I told you not to keep these pictures. You know what happens if she sees them." The she hung in the air like smoke, and all eyes slid toward Rashida. Jasmine wasn't done. "There's also an audio file," she said quietly. "Not from me, from a conversation between Kirk and someone else." "I wasn't supposed to have it, but..." She trailed off, swallowing hard. It explains why I stayed quiet for so long. Room leaned in, the file loaded. Static crackled. Then Kirk's voice. She'll never leave. She's too invested. Brand, kids, money, it's all tied up. As long as I keep it out of the headlines, I can control it. Another voice, unidentified, laughed. In response, Rashida's breath caught, but she didn't flinch. If this was a game of poker, she was holding her expression like the last chip on the table. Still, that one sentence cut deeper than any affair rumor. It wasn't about love, it was about leverage. Kirk's lawyer scrambled to object again, citing privacy violations, illegal recordings, chain of custody. The judge listened, nodding occasionally, but ultimately said this court will allow the evidence for review. Its weight will be determined later. In the gallery, whispers turned into bold statements. He really said that. Not the brand being part of it too. She's done. Someone's phone screen lit up with a breaking news push notification. Live from Atlanta, Jasmine Washington drops audio bomb in Rashida Kirk divorce hearing. Rashida's lawyer leaned in. We can recess now. You don't have to sit through the rest today. But Rashida shook her head slowly. No, if I leave, it looks like I'm running. Her voice was low but steady. Even as her knuckles whitened against the bench, the judge ordered the phone to be taken into evidence and secured. We'll reconvene after a 20-minute recess, they said, banging the gavel. The room exploded. Into movements reporters dashing for the doors, bloggers whispering into mics, and strangers texting faster than humanly possible. Jasmine stayed seated, eyes fixed on Rashida. It wasn't gloating at least not entirely. 'Twas something more complicated. Regret? Defiance? Maybe both. Kirk stood, adjusted his jacket, and for the first time that day, he looked directly at Rashida. We need to talk, he said under his breath. She didn't respond. She didn't even look at him. Because deep down, she knew when they came back from recess, Jasmine's last thing still hadn't been revealed. And whatever it was, might just finish what little was. Left to salvage, the moment the gavel hit, the courtroom became a feeding frenzy. Reporters rushed toward the doors like they'd just heard the dinner bell. Cameramen dragging tripods, bloggers already talking to their phones in frantic whispers. Y'all, this just went from messy to biblical. The hallway outside was worse. A wall of microphones, flashes, and curious strangers clogged the space. Security did their best to keep a clear path, but it was like trying to hold back a tide with bare hands. Every lens pointed toward three people: Rashida, Kirk, and Jasmine. Rashida's lawyer moved quickly, ushering her to a corner near a side exit. We can go to the car, regroup, and come back when it's calmer. But Rashida's eyes were locked on Jasmine, who had paused mid-hallway, speaking in low tones to a man in a dark suit, definitely not her lawyer. He handed her a small flat case, barely larger than a wallet. Kirk noticed it too. He stepped toward them, jaw tight, but a security guard intercepted him. Not now, sir. Kirk's face twitched with frustration. She's not supposed to have that, he muttered under his breath. But Rashida caught it. The word lodged in her chest like a shard. Media questions flew like arrows. Rashida, is the marriage over for good? Kirk, did you sign that agreement? Jasmine, who's in that audio with Kirk? None of them answered, and that silence was louder than any statement could have been. One reporter, faster and bolder. Then the rest slipped past a guard and shoved a mic toward Rashida. Do you believe Jasmine's evidence is real? The question hit like a slap. Rashida's mouth opened, but her lawyer's hand on her arm was the silent warning. Say nothing. She shut her mouth again, but her eyes told a different story. Jasmine, meanwhile, had her phone angled just right. Catching everything on live. We're on recess, she told her audience. But when we go back in, y'all are gonna hear something that even I didn't think I'd get to say out loud. Stay tuned. The comment section exploded instantly: hearts, fire emojis, and a storm of "What is IT?" scrolling faster than human eyes could follow. Inside the courthouse lobby, a few stragglers whispered in clumps, piecing together their own versions of the truth. That case she's holding looks like a drive. No, it's cash. It's probably a bribe. Bribe? Curl. She's not hiding anything now. She's aiming to end careers. When the bailiff called them back in, the energy shifted again. Wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was anticipation so thick it felt physical. Rashida walked back to her seat like she was walking a plank, every step measured. Kirk followed, his posture rigid, his eyes never leaving Jasmine. The judge took the bench. "We will resume. Ms. Washington, you indicated there was one final piece of evidence." Jasmine stood, that small case in her hands. "Yes, Your Honor. It's not about money. It's not about old messages. It's about something Kirk swore didn't exist." She placed the case on the evidence table, unzipped it, and slid out. A thin silver laptop. The courtroom was silent except for the soft click of the hinge. She opened it, turned the screen toward the judge, and tapped play. The audio began instantly, Kirk's voice again. Divorce papers were filed. The judge leaned back, eyebrows raised. "Mr. Frost, care to explain?" Kirk's lawyer jumped up, citing fabrication, selective editing, chain of custody. But the damage was done. The gallery erupted. The air electric with the scent of blood in the water. Rashida didn't look at Kirk. She didn't even need to. Her silence was the loudest answer in the room, and Jasmine. She just sat back down, the faintest trace of a smile ghosting across her lips, but nobody noticed the man in the dark. Suit slipping quietly out of the side door because whatever he had given Jasmine didn't look like it had been fully revealed yet. The gavel struck twice, but it might as well have been a starter pistol. The second the judge called another recess, the courtroom exploded into noise. Reporters ran for the hallway, bloggers, practically tripping over each other to go live. And TikTokers whispering to their cameras, "I can't even keep up, Jazim's got evidence from this year." Outside, the hashtag started trending before Rashida even made it to the door. Hashtag Kirk Frost exposed. Hashtag justice for RASHEEDA. Hashtag Jasmine Washington receipts. Clips of the grainy studio video were already being replayed, slowed down, zoomed in, with every detail dissected. Kirk's watch, the champagne bottle, the way he leaned in. Twitter was a bonfire. Instagram, a gallery of side-by-sides, and YouTube. Thumbnail after thumbnail screaming Kirk caught again. Rashida stayed silent as she moved through the crowd, but her phone wouldn't stop buzzing friends' fans. Even brands she worked with sending "call me now" texts. She ignored them all. Her lawyer was mid-sentence about mitigating the public narrative when she stopped walking. "No," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the hallway noise. "I'm done mitigating. It's time to go on offense." Her lawyer blinked. "What do you mean?" she said, pulling her phone from her bag. "I'm not going to let Jasmine's receipts be the only ones the public sees." Kirk caught up then, brushing past a security guard. "Babe, don't." She didn't even look at him. "You don't understand what she's doing." "Oh, I understand perfectly." Her tone was icy, but there was a glint in her eyes. Know something sharp, calculated. She unlocked her phone and scrolled to a folder buried under a name that meant nothing unless you knew what you were looking for. Inside were screenshots, voice memos, and bank records that had nothing to do with Jasmine, but everything to do with other women Kirk thought she didn't know about. Her lawyer's eyes widened. "You've been holding this for years," Rashida said. "I was waiting for the right time. Looks like Jasmine just gave it to me." While the media swarmed Kirk for a statement, Rashida slipped into a side conference room. She dialed a number. "Set it up," she told whoever was on the other end. "Exclusive interview. Today." Meanwhile, Jasmine was cornered by 3 bloggers, all shoving mics at her. "Is there more? Who gave you the laptop? Are you and Kirk still in contact?" She smiled without answering, her live still running. "Y'all just keep watching," she teased. "You haven't seen the biggest piece yet." The man in the dark suit, the one who'd handed her that small case earlier, was nowhere to be seen. Some swore they saw him duck into the judge's chambers. Others whispered he was a private investigator on Jasmine's payroll by the time the court reconvened. The energy had shifted completely. Rashida walked back in with her head high. No tears now, no wavering. She carried a manila folder and set it deliberately on the evidence table. Kirk glanced at it once, then looked away too fast. "Your Honor," her lawyer began. "In light of the evidence presented today, my client has chosen to submit supplemental documentation that may clarify the extent of the financial and personal misconduct in question." The judge's brows rose. "Proceed." Inside the folder were hotel receipts, wire transfers, and yes photos. Different women. Different cities. Dates that overlapped with family vacations, anniversaries, even Rashida's own birthday week. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Jasmine leaned forward, eyes narrowing not in jealousy, but in realization. She wasn't the only one. Kirk's attorney tried to grab at the narrative, framing it as irrelevant outside the scope, but the damage was instant and deep. Because now the storyline wasn't just Kirk versus Rashida or Rashida versus Jasmine. It was Kirk versus every woman he'd underestimated. Social media ate it alive. Within minutes, a meme popped up. Kirk's face in the middle, surrounded by a spinning carousel of mystery women, captioned "The Frost Rotation." It was brutal, viral, and Rashida's SUV pulled into a private studio on the other side of town. Inside, a professional lighting rig was already in place, along with a sleek white couch and 3 cameras angled for the perfect shot. A producer from a major gossip channel greeted her. "We're doing this live. No cuts, no edits." "You're sure you're ready?" Rashida sat down, smoothed her dress, and nodded. "Ready? I've been ready for years." At 4:03 p.m., the live stream went live. Within minutes, viewership spiked into the hundreds of thousands. Comments flew. "Oh my God, she's speaking out. Here comes the tea. Kirk better hide." Rashida didn't waste time. "You've all seen what went down in court?" Today, she began, her tone calm but edged with steel. "But what you haven't seen are the things that never made it into evidence." She reached beside her and lifted a small stack of printed photos, panning them out for the camera. The first was of Kirk and the R&B singer, not in the studio this time, but boarding a private jet together in Miami. The second was a still from security footage at a luxury boutique, Kirk swiping his joint brand credit card for $18,000 worth of jewelry. The singer standing beside him. The third was the real bomb, a selfie of the R&B singer taken in Rashida's own house. The comment section detonated. "In her house. This is next-level disrespect. I'm shook." Rashida leaned in closer to the camera. "She thought she could walk into my home and play house while I was out building our empire. And Kirk, you thought I wouldn't find out? You thought I wouldn't keep receipts? Well, guess what? Every piece of jewelry, every designer bag, every hotel room. It's all documented. And it's all getting turned over to her label's legal department. Let's see how long she keeps those endorsements." Within seconds, clips of her statement were being ripped and reposted across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. The R&B singer's name shot up to the #2 trending spot right under #KirkFrostExposed. But Rashida wasn't finished. She reached into her bag, pulled out a second phone, and tapped a few buttons. "Oh, and one last thing," she said, glancing at the camera with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That collaboration y'all were hiding? It's dropping right now, whether you wanted it to or not." She hit send, and somewhere in the digital ether, an unreleased track began leaking to every major gossip blog, each file stamped with one unmistakable watermark. Property of Rashida Frost. Back at the courthouse, Kirk's phone buzzed nonstop. The R&B singer's team scrambled in panic. Fans were already dissecting the lyrics online, pointing out references that made it impossible to deny the affair. And just when it seemed like Rashida had played her final card, the live stream's producer leaned in off camera. There's someone here who says they have more receipts for you." And they're not about Kirk. Rashida turned slowly, eyebrow raised. Let them in. The screen faded to black. If you thought this was the end of the Rashida Kirk Jasmine saga, think again, because the next chapter might be even messier. Rashida's live stream has already set the internet on fire. But who just walked in with more receipts? Could it be another woman Kirk's been hiding? Or is this about someone else entirely? And what's going to happen to the R&B singer now that her name is tangled up in this courtroom disaster and a brand new leak? One thing's for sure. The alliances have shifted, the power has changed hands, and the fallout is going to be brutal. Stick around, because this story isn't cooling down anytime soon, and when the next set of receipts drops, the whole hip-hop industry might have to pick a side. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.